Thank you for standing by and welcome to the Imugene Investor Webinar, with today's presentation focused on last week's announcement that the company has acquired a license to the Azer-Cel technology from Precision Bio. Joining us from Imugene today, we have the CEO and Managing Director, Leslie Chong, as well as the newly appointed COO, Dr. Bradley Glover. All participants are in a listen-only mode. There will be an initial slide presentation that will last for approximately 20 minutes, and we'll take questions thereafter. If you'd like to submit a live question, please do so using the Q&A panel within Zoom. Just noting we've received a lot on email already, so we'll get through as many as possible. To kick it off, I'll hand it over to Imugene CEO and Managing Director, Leslie Chong. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Matt. So before we start the presentation, I just wanted to address a few key questions up front. And mainly, I want to be absolutely clear that Imugene is not changing strategic directions. With the acquisition of Azer-Cel, it actually improves the strategic directions and our goals. So our strategy and goals have always been that either the company gets acquired, we partner with Big Pharma for development, etc., or we out-license each of our technologies separately, or develop or commercialize our assets. So with the acquisition of Azer-Cel, it actually accelerates all of those. And Imugene is already involved with cellular therapy in some ways due to our combination with CD19 expressing onCARlytic. So it adds value to the existing pipeline. And then some of you have asked, why are we raising money, and especially the 35 million last week. So we have previously said our cash run rate was strong, and it is strong, but that was before we saw this amazing opportunity with Azer-Cel. So when that appeared, the strategy of our cash position was readdressed, and the board took the view that we did not want to eat into our existing cash for our other programs, such as our promising onCARlytic. So we decided to top it up now. And then also the question of dilution. Imugene is roughly around 500 million market cap, and 35 million is only a dilution of roughly about 7%. So which we do not view as material. And we know that shareholders like to be included on the same or better terms than institutions. So we have included an SPP so that the cap raising process is democratic and all shareholders and you can participate. And then lastly, why did Chimeric get paid the 3.3 million finder's fee? Well, the Azer-Cel technology was sourced from CHM. The two CEOs of Precision and CHM are close friends. But unfortunately, due to the cash position, it was clear that IMU was in the better position to deliver on the promise of Azer-Cel. Imugene had the opportunity to license the technology from Precision, and as a result, we had an obligation to pay CHM the fee. Paul Hopper was conflicted, so he was excluded or recused from any decision-making on the asset and had no involvement in the decision. Okay, so I am going to go right into our presentation. Which view am I, Brad, which view am I on?
That's great, Leslie.
Okay, great, thank you. It is my true delight to introduce you to Dr. Bradley Glover. He's had roles at Kite Pharma, Genentech, Roche, Illumina, and all in a very senior position of exactly this, CAR T and allo CAR T positions. He's got corporate development and technical operations that he's experienced that. He's been awesome bringing in all our CMC and tech and strategic operations in Durham, North Carolina. So Brad will be providing some of the presentations today, so you get a flavor of his knowledge, but welcome, Brad.
Thank you very much, Leslie. I'm excited to join the company and look forward to being part of the journey together.
So Imugene currently has 6 unique assets 4 platform technologies with a myriad of solid tumors that we're addressing, and now we get to add blood cancers to our mix of clinical studies. We already have 2 existing supply agreements from major pharmaceutical company, 4 beautiful, unique asset, and the one that we'll talk about today is Azer-Cel and how it marries quite well with our existing pipeline on onCARlytics. So just a brief overview of the landscape of autologous CAR T. So autologous CAR T came in quick and swift in 2017, and all of these are approved, and several targeting CD19. And that DLBCL space is where I want you to focus on later, giving such response rates as anywhere between 53 to 98% overall response rate. So unfortunately, we do not see these response rates in solid tumors, and that's where onCARlytics come in. Beautiful response rates. Autologous are the only one that's approved. Our CAR T that we have just licensed is what's called an allogeneic. So I'll call it allo CAR T from here on in, and it's called Azer-Cel, and we've licensed in this from NASDAQ listed company called Precision Biosciences. With that license, what we get is first in class allo CAR T that has the potential to be marketed. First allo CAR T marketed in the world, and it will be from Imugene, which I am completely over the moon about. And this could happen in a matter of a few years. We have robust data from 84 patients, and we've completed drug materials. We've also taken in the manufacturing facility along with all the technical and scientific experts in the Durham, North Carolina site that Brad will talk about in just a second. So just to give you an overview of what's the difference between autologous or auto CAR T versus allo CAR T. So auto CAR Ts are highly personalized. They're dependent on the patient's own T cells that you reprogram and re-engineer and inject it back into them. And then your CAR T cells go after the certain kind of cancer cell. So those are the ones that I just showed you for the approvals. Allogeneic CAR Ts are what's called off the shelf and on demand. So these Azer-Cel specifically is taking healthy donor cells. They're re-engineered by a gene editing platform called ARCUS. There is that beautiful universal match with Azer-Cel that we have seen across 84 patients. It's called off the shelf. The batches can be frozen and shipped to a myriad of clinics and hospitals, and then those batches provide multiple dosing, not just a single patient. So then the process, we would argue, if not better than auto CAR T, that these souped up or supercharged CAR T cells go after your certain kinds of cancer. Now, I'm going to let Brad explain, given his wealth of experience in allo CAR Ts and auto CAR Ts, I'm going to have him explain the main differences.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Leslie. I mean, this is a fantastic opportunity. You know, why I think the industry has seen a lot of success with the autologous programs in some of the slides previously that Leslie covered. There are really some challenges there that I think the industry is going to have to address, and allogeneic therapies really does that. You can start to really drive down some of the manufacturing costs. The COGS are going to be very important to have these lean. Throughput's important. Making sure you drive out variability in the process that can be associated with patient starting material, as well as the variability in potency that you can see. And the unique process that Azer-Cel has associated with it, that now Imugene has, really is going to position the company to be able to make allogeneic therapies against multiple indications, and really have an efficient, cost-effective process to be competitive in the landscape and ultimately make a difference in the lives of patients. That's our hope.
Thank you, Brad. And auto and allo, one of the things that is starkly different to me is autologous CAR Ts are so patient dependent. It is something like 19 days to about 42 days before a patient can get their own injected T cells or souped up T cells. During that time, a lot of the patients progress, so they have to get bridging therapy. There is a process of leukapheresis where they sit in a chair for 5 to 7 hours to get their white blood cells so that they can tease out the T cells, and that could be processed. So with allogeneic, the promise is here. It's on demand. When the patient is diagnosed, they could sit and get their drug as needed. And the first indication of choice is, I think it's such a clever design. So there is DLBCL happens to be a pretty deadly and aggressive type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Roughly 80,000 patients, just US alone, are diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and 30% of those cases progress into this aggressive type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it's called diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. This DLBCL patient population have really limited options, and it's a high-grade, fast-growing cancer type. If you're diagnosed with DLBCL, you might be given weeks, if not a few months to live. So we think that this is a huge patient population that we can serve with our first allo CAR T approval. So currently the DLBCL patients are treated with R-CHOP. This is a pretty rancid combination of chemo and steroids, and roughly about 60% of the patients are cured with this. However, if they progress or fall on those diseases, then therapies, then what they have choice of is a high dose chemotherapy again, and maybe a stem cell transplant that gives you roughly about 20-25% response rate. Now, the new sort of process is for all those approved auto CD19 CAR Ts to be treated in the second line space. And so as Yescarta, Kymriah, and Breyanzi move into that second line, there leaves a 60 to 65% failure rate. And that's the third line space that no one has. And this is the space we're going to go into for our fast to market strategy. This is our registrational strategy. And I think this is why I'm so excited. So the past data clearly indicated that we work incredibly well in this space. And I'll tell you why. 84 patients were treated with Azer-Cel, 61 were non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, 23 were in leukemia state. We saw a fair amount of significant responses in both, but out of that 61 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma patients, 18 patients had a CAR T relapse. So they took auto CAR T, relapsed, and out of that 18 patients, 14 were DLBCL, that exact population we're going into for that registration. A whopping 83% overall response rate with 61% clearance rate, confirmed response rate. Beautiful. And more than half had a durability or long-lasting response for 6 months or greater. We know for a fact that CD19 as a marker still is relevant even after you fail on therapy. So 85% still maintain a CD19 target. And Yescarta and Breyanzi and Kymriah work well enough. However, 60 to 65% of the patient population progress off of this disease. And this is the line that we're going into. 30,000 patients with DLBCL are diagnosed just in the US alone, 33% relapse off of chemo, then they go on auto CAR T. That 60 to 65% of the population is what we're focused on. The approved auto CAR T, the median price is roughly $375,000. And if you look at the total addressable market in this space alone, and US cell at auto peak sales, you're talking about $2.5 billion. Once we go into the clinic in DLBCL, we'll look for other indications as well, as such as pediatric ALL. And the space is only growing. So even in the third line, 5,700 patients in the US, 5,300 in the Western Europe. And as the sales of autologous CAR T grows, we're looking at just in 2018, it was a 292 million in sales. 2022, it became a blockbuster with 1.8 billion in sales. They're projecting just in 2023 alone, that 2.2 billion, and it's only growing. And again, 60 to 70% of the patient population progress off of this therapy. They have no other lines of therapy to go on. It will make it easy to enroll, as well as hopefully registration study to market. So excitement here. We already have 5 of the major cancer centers in the US already signed up for our registrational study. This is registrational to market. Just want to be clear. So they're currently, these 5 sites are already participating in our phase 1B study. So we've already received FDA feedback and guidelines regarding this pivotal registrational to market study. And drug material, which is one of the most difficult part of any CAR T development, we've already got the manufacturing all locked down. And I'm going to have Brad talk to you about our beautiful facility in Durham, North Carolina.
Absolutely. You know, they say in cell therapy, the process is the product, and that is really so true. And I was just so excited when we had a small team go out to North Carolina this past week and to meet the new Imugene employees, as well as tour the facility. Just really remarkable facility, an incredible dedicated workforce out there. Not only the facility for the manufacturing, we have additional space with process development labs. So you really have that CMC continuum, handoff from research to process development to the manufacturing facility. So it's a beautiful continuum there. The MCAT facility, as we call it, is about 32,800 square feet. It's got manufacturing space and a really flexible expansion space that we could go into, and that keeps our strategic options open in the future. With the GMP compliant, as well as the facility has gone through several third-party audits and really had no findings. And so it's really operating effectively and in a compliant way. It's really a turnkey solution for final drug product supply. And it's been proven. It's not an unknown entity. It's been proven. It's manufacturing product right now in patients, and we expect to really transition this into the future. So it's got expandability. It actually has made product, and we have process improvements that we're already have in our project portfolio to increase throughput and drive down costs. So it's a remarkable asset the team has acquired. And the employees are super dedicated, super talented, and it's just a lot of energy around this deal.
Thank you, Brad. He spent all of last week there welcoming our product. Another exciting aspect of Azer-Cel is that our onCARlytics, it was right for it. So it's our onCARlytics, again, for those of you who are new, is an oncolytic virus that expresses or upregulates or flags a solid tumor with CD19. So that combination is just a match made in heaven. So we now not only have a footprint in solid tumors, we now have a huge footprint in blood cancers. The timelines will come in fast and swift, as early as in the next few weeks and maybe upwards of a month. We will have the FDA drug lot release. So for every lot that you use for any clinical trial, the FDA has to validate it, and that is already with the FDA being reviewed. That is the drug lot that will be used to validate our registrational study, so that phase 2 registrational to market study. And you will get updates throughout, and we're going to enroll specific patients that is going to be in the registrational study, that DLBCL population that have failed off of previous lines of autologous CAR T. So specifically those patients, so we've got 2 reasons why we're going to win in the registrational space in that study. Multiple goals, multiple value realization. We've expedited this. I think we've actually, just put it on a fast speed, company acquisition, partnering with big pharma, licensing technology separately, and also the commercialization independently. And that could come as early as in a few years. So I think I'm done.
Great, thank you, Leslie. We'll now jump into the Q&A session. Once again, if anyone would like to submit a question, please do so using the Q&A panel within Zoom. I'll start with some that have come through via email. So how will Imugene utilize the manufacturing facility it has acquired in North Carolina?
I think exactly what Brad says is currently had made the drug for the 84 patients previously on the study, and will be producing more of our batches moving forward for our registrational study.
Very good. The next question is, has the Bort license finally rounded up the required technology base for all CF33 variants, or does Imugene need more?
So I think you're talking about the CF33 onCARlytics and its expression of CD19. The more we have partners or combined with the CD19, be it allogeneic, be it auto, be it bispecific, be it monoclonal antibody, it actually increases the value of onCARlytics because we're sort of the facilitator. So if we can combine with any CD19s out there, it makes us even more attractive, I would say.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the long-term strategy? Is it still selling after phase 2/regulatory approval, or now going the way of commercialization by itself?
I mean, all of it. So our 4 goals are quite simple that I just explained. And this acquisition accelerates all 4.
Thank you. The next question is, excuse me, Leslie has previously referred to Imugene 2.0. Can you please elaborate on that? And was this acquisition part of it?
I think, I'm not sure. I always sort of talk about Imugene always in a startup being very fast and efficient, and we're sort of scrappy, and Azer-Cel makes us a little bit more rounded, I would say, and we need to be a little bit more, we've got more people on board, we have to be a little bit more like a real biotech in this world. It makes us much more visible to the US biotech as well. So it feels like 2.0, but it's business as usual for me.
Next question is, are royalties tied to US dollar sales or sales volume?
So those royalty milestones that we spoke about are all inclusive of US sales, EU sales, even when we go into new indication. So the sales are upwards of billions and billions. So that's all inclusive of everything.
I know you touched on this one, but what is the estimated time frame on the new Imugene Azer-Cel product? When will it be ready for use as medicine for patients if the balance of the trials are successful?
I think in a few years, because we will likely go for, of course, with FDA guidance for accelerated approval. So that means as early as when we can get progression-free survival, when we hit those markers, we can actually start filing for a marketable process, which is called a BLA. So that could happen in a matter of few years.
Thank you. The next question is, can you please explain how this acquisition is not buying a competing product? Azer-Cel looks very similar and is further advanced than the IMU product.
So I'm a little bit confused by that because we have 4 platforms and they're all quite different. They're under the umbrella of immuno-oncology therapy, but we have the B-cell immunotherapy, which is a cancer vaccine. We have CF33, which is an oncolytic virus, and then we have onCARlytics, which is an oncolytic virus that expresses CD19 or enables CD19 in combination with the CD19 therapeutics. So they're very different lines of indication, and we don't have a CAR T in our product until, just a few weeks ago. So no, I don't think that they're competing at all. They're actually pretty complementary.
Thank you. The next question is around Precision Biosciences' most recent earnings update said there were several interested parties in Azer-Cel. Does that mean there was a competitive bidding process and thus a higher price had to be paid?
We didn't go into a competitive bidding process because Precision Bioscience love the fact that Imugene and the people in it are clinical developers. The fact that we have completed a phase 2 study with positive results in 4.5 years is quite attractive. We are all clinical drug developers by choice. And I think they really like that we would take in their product and start developing from day one. And we have done that. And we actually paid fairly low prices, given that we know Pfizer and Astellas, two pharmaceutical companies that have paid into a CAR T company for rights of refusal at 25 million to about 50 million. We paid quite a lot less to license in the entire oncology platform for use for 8 million upfront. Pretty good.
Leslie, there's been quite a few questions coming just around the manufacturing space, and a couple of the common questions are, can it be used for other viruses or drugs in the portfolio? And another question was, is it producing revenue at all?
So, sure, but right now Brad and I are just focused on getting our registrational study started. So all the manufacturing, sweat, tears, are going to go into producing enough batches and drug for our registrational study. We will look into other aspects at a later time.
Leslie, just to add on to that, I think that's spot on. The types of facilities used in allogeneic and even autologous cell therapy, by definition, have flexibility built into their layout as well as their automation and desktop equipment. So in the future, you will have that strategic option if the team so desires to move that direction. But for now, it's all hands on deck. Let's get Azer-Cel progressed. And I would say there's just an incredible amount of organizational focus on that right now.
That's a good segue into this question, which is, can you please elaborate on what a registrational to market study is, and when can you actually charge patients for the therapy?
So CAR T therapies, normal state of development is you go into phase 1 dose finding, you go into phase 2 proof of concept, and then phase 3 is where that's the registrational study. And that's once you completed that, you get to market your product. With CAR Ts in particular, because of the whopping response rates and the unmet need out there, it is highly accelerated, that where you can go from phase 1 to, and most of the CAR Ts have been approved at phase 2. So when I say registrational, that is the last phase of a study before you can market. And what I'm saying to you is Azer-Cel has the capability, because we have chosen the right indication of a truly unmet need that we think there is nothing else there for, that we can walk through the FDA process much faster and hopefully better given our data package to get this marketed. So that's registrational study, just means a study before you market it. And that this could happen in a matter of a few years.
The next question is, what does this mean for the existing trials with Oncolytics and other partners?
So nothing. So our preclinical, non-exclusive combination therapy that we have with allo CAR Ts and autologous CAR Ts, bispecifics and iNKTs are all ongoing. What we are currently doing is Oncolytics is going into the clinic with a bispecific product called Blincyto in combination. We will look at preclinical with our Azer-Cel because it's ours and we have a lot more control over it. But there's nothing that precludes us from continuing on the non-clinical work.
The next question is, how are the T cells sourced to manufacture for Azer-Cel? Is this a possible limiting factor for expansion?
No, so healthy donors provide that. They go through a pretty rigorous screening process, but the leukopaths or the blood samples come from a myriad of different donors, and they're all healthy. So they're programmed and then they're gene edited to perfection and really souped up. So we actually have donors throughout the process, and we even have enough for the registrational study, or that to market, or the phase 3, or whatever you want to call it.
The next question is just around competitive landscape, if there's anything else targeting similar indications to Azer-Cel.
There are, and that's the beauty part. So when we look at the landscape, and I'm going to bring this to the wider market, that there are competitions. However, this is such a clever design. So there's companies called Allogene as well as Azer-Cel that are in this space, but they're not going after the auto CAR T failures, which I showed you is a growing population. They're going after auto CAR T naive, and they'll soon go into the space, but I think we're ahead and we just need to keep going and get us into the clinic and get us the registration and put our flag to say we've got the official win and FDA approval for this drug before, because I think this is the first in class allo CAR T out there.
Another one I think you've touched on, but when will any studies based on synergies between Azer-Cel and oncolytics start, for example, preclinical testing?
So we want to have enough batches and drug for the phase 1B. That is critical. That's our, as Brad says, that's our organizational goal, to get that enough batches for the registrational to market the phase 2-3 that we're going into. Outside of that, anything remaining, yes, that's our next second priority to combine with our oncolytics. But I would say our first priority to use the drug for the in-clinic for the patients.
And you've previously mentioned that the plan is for Imugene to be bought out by Big Pharma. Has this strategy now deviated given to Imugene being competitive in the market?
No, so I think it actually accelerated. You know, I can't impress upon folks enough that our goals of either being bought out, partnering, commercializing, or out licensing ourselves all have actually come to a closer finish with Azer-Cel acquisition.
Great, thanks, Leslie. There's been a large number of questions come in, so we'll endeavour to come back on any others on email separately. In wrapping up, another common question we've received has been around the SPP participation and documentation that goes with that. The timeline for that can be viewed on page 5 of the ASX announcement regarding the capital raise that was lodged on the 18th of August. The prospectus for the SPP, though, will be dispatched on Monday, the 28th of August, with the SPP closing on the 14th of September. So just wanted to clarify that for quite a few people asking. Leslie, I'll just hand it back to you if you had a closing comment before we wrap up.
Well, I'm thrilled that Dr. Bradley Glover has accepted the appointment, and I am even more thrilled that we're going to take Azer-Cel into the clinic and hopefully be the first allo CAR T to be approved in the world out of Imugene. So I'm quite proud of everything that's happening right now. And Brad, do you want to say a few words?
No, I just thank you so much for inviting me on this journey with the incredible employees at Imugene. I mean, without people, you don't get anything done, and they're very talented, very engaged. And I think the organization has really put itself in a position to make a difference for patients. So thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Leslie and Bradley, and thanks to everyone for joining today.